Hello Recruit, and welcome to an Astroneer Academy 201 Extra explaining why wrecked spaceports are amazing. We were going to begin our discussion of advanced resources this week, but, well, I am continually discovering new things about wrecked spaceports and felt they really deserved a dedicated course. As a result, I have decided to bump the advanced resources course and save that topic for next time and spend some time talking about the spaceports instead. Let's begin with that name, wrecked spaceport. As we will see toward the end of the third semester of Astroneer Academy, spaceport is not simply a term adopted by astroneers. In fact, custom training simulations can be configured to adjust the frequency these objects appear and do refer to them as spaceports. While astroneers have been referring to these objects as spaceports long before custom configurations were added to the training simulation, the name was spot on correct. You can typically find several wrecked spaceports on any given planet and at least one on every moon. While they do function as landing zones, they will not appear as an available landing zone until you have discovered them. If you are struggling to find one of the wrecked spaceports, here's a quick pro tip for uncovering them. Once you arrive at a new planet, jump into a vehicle, pick a direction, and start driving. After several minutes, turn around and drive back to your shuttle. Head back into orbit and, most likely, you will have uncovered at least one wrecked spaceport. Even if you did not see it with your own eyes, simply entering roughly the same vicinity is enough to allow them to become available as an active landing zone. There is another way to find a wrecked spaceport via use of an adorable little friend, but we will save that discussion for an Astroneer Academy 205 Extra. Once you have located a wrecked spaceport, you might be wondering what you can do with it. Well, Recruit, brace yourself because there are a lot of things these banged up landing pads can help you with. Though at first glance, no one would blame you if you thought it was just a bunch of wreckage. They are, after all, typically surrounded by a large field of debris. This debris is often the first clue that there is something pretty incredible going on, though. Not only will you usually find several power producers in this debris field, you will also typically find research items and resources. You may even occasionally discover a portable smelter, though this seems fairly rare. Up on the storage at the top of the wrecked spaceport, you will almost always find a gravity globe, along with possibly a work light and additional power producers. So already, just by discovering a wrecked spaceport, you have uncovered numerous useful items and resources. As you approach the wrecked spaceport itself, you will quickly discover that, when you're close enough, the spaceport provides oxygen similar to a rover or shuttle. While you can create a tether network that will connect to the spaceport, the tethers will remain dark and will not transfer oxygen via that tether network by default. In order to create a functional tether network branching out from a spaceport, you need to do one of three things. First, you can land or place a shuttle that contains an oxygenator on the spaceport, and that oxygenator will begin transferring oxygen from the shuttle directly to the tether network. Granted, one of the tethers must be close enough to the center of the spaceport to allow it to connect to the oxygenator in the shuttle. The spaceport cannot directly transfer oxygen from the shuttle. If, however, you attach an oxygenator to one of the storage slots around the ring at the top of the spaceport, you will have uncovered a second way that you can create a tether network with the spaceport. Now, the spaceport itself can provide oxygen to the surrounding tethers. The third way to utilize a tether network with a spaceport is to plug one of the power cables on the spaceport into a platform that is already connected to a power network that contains an oxygenator. That brings us, rather conveniently, to the three power cable plugs you will find surrounding the base of the spaceport. This is where the functionality really starts to ramp up. These power cable plugs allow you to connect the spaceport to a power network, but they also allow for one other connection that no other power plug can provide. We'll talk about that killer app in just a moment. When connected to an existing power network, power can flow to and from the spaceport as it would through any platform. That means any power producers attached to the storage at the top of the spaceport will provide power via your power network, and any power consumers attached to those upper storage slots will receive power. Given their ability to integrate into an existing power network, I was tempted to include this course as a companion to our base building course coming later this semester. Since they function as landing pads as well, and since I'm really excited to be talking about this, I figured we may as well include them as a companion to our space travel courses. That is especially true as we move our discussion to an unbelievably useful feature of the spaceport that is not readily apparent. Remember a few weeks ago in Astroneer Academy 201 when I mentioned there is no way to transfer power from a shuttle into a power network? As we discussed, since the shuttles lack power cables, there must not be a way to get power into or out of a shuttle via a power network. Well, that is not entirely true. When a shuttle is properly seated on the top of a spaceport, that shuttle becomes fully integrated into the power network. I'll be honest and admit that I stumbled onto this functionality completely by accident. When setting up an example for Astroneer Academy 201 to demonstrate that shuttles have a very small amount of internal power, I placed discharged batteries into a medium shuttle that sat atop the spaceport near the Astroneer Academy base. I was surprised when the batteries charged up in only a handful of seconds when I was expecting it to take several minutes. That's when it dawned on me that the shuttle was integrated into the power network, and to be honest with you, it kinda blew my mind. We can demonstrate this in a few different ways. The easiest is to repeat the battery charging scenario. When sitting on the ground, you can see that the batteries inside of this shuttle are charging very slowly due to the shuttle's incredibly low power output. If I place the shuttle on top of the spaceport, however, the batteries instantly begin charging much more quickly as they are now connected to the base's existing power network. We can demonstrate this in reverse as well. This is another spaceport located not too far from our home base. Inside the shuttle is a medium generator that is currently turned off. You can see that the medium battery on the connected platform on the ground is charging very slowly as it draws power from the limited internal power of the shuttle. If I turn on the generator inside of the shuttle, all of the power cables light up and the battery on the platform begins to charge much faster. It should be noted that this power transfer will only work when the shuttle is properly seated atop the spaceport. If you landed the shuttle on the spaceport and have not moved it, it will be properly seated. If, however, you manually place the shuttle up there, you will want to ensure it is properly seated to take advantage of this and other connectivity that we will discuss in just a moment. You can tell that the shuttle is properly seated because it will seemingly snap into place in the center. When a shuttle is properly seated, power is not the only thing that can be transferred into a shuttle. Resources can be transferred as well. Once again, I have a fairly simple setup in place to demonstrate this. The medium shuttle currently has a medium silo full of carbon in its cargo bay. If I attach this medium canister to one of the storage slots at the top of the spaceport, the carbon begins transferring out of the shuttle and into the canister. This, of course, also works in reverse. If I set the canister to output, the carbon begins to move from the canister back onto the medium silo in the shuttle. Interestingly enough, not everything will automatically transfer to or from a shuttle if they're attached to the spaceport storage. You must utilize storage that can be set to input or output, or utilize a module such as an atmospheric condenser or smelting furnace that outputs resources. If I land the shuttle full of carbon on the spaceport and it only has its own medium storage silo, the carbon remains in the shuttle. This only adds to the usefulness of this functionality, however. If anything attached to the storage of a spaceport was automatically transferred into a shuttle, that would mean power producers, work lights, or anything sitting there would transfer, and well, you probably wouldn't want that to happen. If you take the time to set it all properly though, you can create some really efficient resource transfers. All of this functionality makes me wonder if there aren't other features of the Rex Spaceport that have been overlooked. It seems every time I encounter one, I learn something new about them. There is one glaring fault to the Rex Spaceport that we have to talk about. That broken ramp. The spaceport is a tall boy, and without a jump jet or jetpack, it can seem rather difficult to get up to the top of a spaceport if you're on the ground. That's where another pro tip comes in handy. I personally leave the gravity globe that is usually found on the spaceport in place. When I need to get up to the top of the spaceport, I interact with the gravity globe to enter it, then quickly exit it, making a nice gentle landing up top. If you have a shuttle on top of the spaceport, you can use it to enter and exit to make a quick trip up there as well. That broken ramp brings me to the final point in our discussion today. The existence of these wrecked spaceports in the midst of a damaged base indicates that, at some point in the past, they were a functioning part of a base. While we do not know what happened to cause the destruction we see, including to the spaceport itself, we can see it was a key part of the base. Because of this, it makes me wonder why we are not able to create spaceports complete with a functional ramp and deploy them as alternatives to other landing pads. They provide a landing pad, supply oxygen, integrate shuttles into a power network, and can even automate the transfer of resources into and out of a shuttle. Why any Astroneer wouldn't want these to be something we can create for ourselves boggles my mind. So, Exodynamics, if you're listening, please hear my plea. I know you are hard at work trying to rescue us all from being trapped inside of the training simulation. But you have updated the training simulation with new objects and functionality for years, so please allow us to create our own spaceports, and please make sure the ramp isn't broken. Today, we have focused our discussion on one single wrecked item that appears in the training simulation, but I hope we have been able to fully communicate just how amazing these wrecked spaceports are. They are incredibly useful objects that integrate into a base quite well, and I truly hope we will gain the ability to create and deploy them wherever we wish. Next week, in Astroneer Academy 202, we will investigate advanced resources, the items used to create them, and how to utilize them in our adventures. Until then, I'm Brandon, reminding you to keep looking to the stars.